Once upon a time in Turkey, there lived a funny little wise man named Nasruddin Hoka. He wore a huge white turban and a worn-out coat made of patches upon patches. Riding about on his little grey donkey, he liked to help whomever he could. One day, Nasruddin Hoka heard a great commotion inside a caravanserai, a hostel for travellers. A frisky goat had gotten loose inside the kitchen. Kicking and prancing, she was breaking all the dishes, knocking over pots and pans, and spilling all the cooking oil. The cook was screaming, and a few travellers were slipping in their oil as they tried to catch the goat. Because he loved goats so much, Nasruddin always carried a sweet apple in his pocket for them. He quickly took out the apple and cut it into little pieces. He lined up the pieces so as the little goat nibbled to the last piece, Nasruddin was able to catch her. Gently, Nasruddin put the little goat back into a pen, and everyone cheered. The caravanserai owner invited Nasruddin to eat with the other travellers, but Nasruddin declined, as he was on his way to a banquet at the home of a rich friend. Nasruddin trotted off, waving to all and happy to have helped. He was so late now that he realized he would not have time to change his coat, which was not only worn out with patches upon patches, but also oily, dirty, and smelling of goat. When Nasruddin's friend opened the door to Nasruddin, he was shocked. He was afraid his other guests would laugh at him for being friends with such a shabby, smelly man. Nasruddin simply jumped off his donkey, hugged his friend, and joined the banquet. He was so happy to be among friends that for a while he did notice something very strange. No one was facing him. All the guests had turned their backs toward Nasruddin, and when the servants brought dinner into the room, the food was served to everyone but him. Before long, Nasruddin was left sitting alone with nothing at all to eat. Several times he tried to start a conversation by yelling to a guest at the opposite side of the room, but no one listened, and no one responded. Nasruddin looked thoughtfully at his friends. Each man was scrubbed until he glistened. Each one was wearing his best coat. Then Nasruddin looked down at his own coat, worn out with patches upon patches, oily, dirty, and smelling of goat. Very quietly, Nasruddin slipped out the door. He mounted his little donkey and began trotting home, when he had an idea. At home, Nasruddin jumped into a tub of hot water, poured in a whole jar of perfumed soap crystals, and scrubbed himself until it glistened and the whole room was filled with bubbles. Nasruddin dried and powdered himself. Then he put on new shoes with tasseled toes, a magnificent new turban with sparkling jewels, and a fine new coat of shining silk with golden threads. Nasruddin preened himself before a mirror. Never had he been so completely well dressed. Never had anyone worn a coat like this one. How fine he looked. Nasruddin strutted out of his house. Everyone nodded respectfully as he swaggered along the street, heading back to his rich friend's home. A servant ushered Nasruddin into the banquet hall, and his smiling host immediately served him food and drink. Everyone smiled and nodded at Nasruddin. What a fine figure he made! What a fine coat! Nasruddin was the most popular man at the banquet. Nasruddin picked up the choicest grilled lamb chop, but instead of putting it in his mouth, Nasruddin put it inside his coat. "Eat, coat, eat," said Nasruddin. Nasruddin picked up fish fried in vine leaves and roasted eggplant. Opening his coat, he said, "Eat, coat, eat." Nasruddin scooped up pilaf, raisins, and pistachio nuts. Opening his coat, he said, "Eat, coat, eat." Boiled squash stuffed with hash and olives went into the coat. "Eat, coat, eat." Slices of chicken breast stewed in rose water, sugar cakes, flavored jellies, sherbet, sticky baklava, pomegranates, persimmons, oranges, apples, figs, and dates. All of this food Nasruddin stuffed into his bulging coat, shouting, "Eat, coat, eat!" Finally, Nasruddin opened his coat once more and poured a whole bottle of wine inside. Then, closing his coat as best as he could, Nasruddin patted his belly and smiled at his host. All the guests were amazed. What was Nasruddin doing? At last, the alarmed host said, "Tell me, my old friend, why are you feeding your coat?" "Surely you wanted my coat to eat," Nasruddin replied. "When I first arrived, my old coat made of patches upon patches. There was no food for me. Yet when I came back in this new coat, there was every kind of food for me. This shows it was the coat, and not me, that you invited to your banquet." "Remember this, my friends," said Nasruddin Hoka. "If you want to look deeply, look at the man and not at his coat. You can change the coat, but you cannot change the man. A coat may be fine, but a coat does not make a man. Outside, a man may wear a sheepskin, but inside he may wear the heart of a wolf. Many a good man may be found under a shabby coat. With coats, new are the best, but with friends, old are the best." Everyone cheered. "The wisdom of Nasruddin Hoka calls for celebration," exclaimed the host. Music and fireworks resounded, and everyone danced under the stars of heaven. He who wears heaven in his heart is always well dressed.